Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning to you. You. Good morning, good morning to you, and many more. I don't have my true light on, so let me go do that really quickly. I'll be right back. There we go. I think that's a little better. Yeah, that's a little better. YouTube's lighting is a little bit different from uh, IG's lighting. So, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope that everybody is having a great and wonderful day, that you're having a great day so far. I hope nothing has come to disturb your peace in your day. So far, I've been having a great day myself. I've been able to get up and out early and get some things done. So I am excited about that. And we're going to jump right in. It's Get Free Friday. Most of you know I believe that we are free, but I also believe that there are areas in our life that we can always dig into even more to get more freer. I think that we are on a journey as far as human life and human beings, and that there's always a place in us that we can improve. So today we're looking at two books. One is Tina Turner's, one of her biographical works, Happiness Becomes You, A Guide to Changing Your Life for Good. And where we stopped off was Tina talking to us about the power of a guide. Now, she uses the word mentor. I do not use the word mentor when I talk about people who have been influential in my life. I use the word coach, I use the word guide because I know a little bit more about the origin of the word mentor and where it comes from. And if you study it, you'll probably see why I don't use the word mentor when I reflect on people who have been influential in my life. So I use the word guide. So everywhere she says mentors, I'm going to replace it with the word guide. Okay. All right. So I see we're starting early today. I'm going to probably need some moderators eventually over on YouTube. Um, but yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind for the future. All right. So we're going to read that. And we're going to read out of Dennis Kimbrough's book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, Daily Motivations for African American Success. And these are just once a day kind of readings that you can just kind of read and ponder and think about. All right. So good morning to those of you who are joining us today. Again, if you're with me for the first time, this is Daring Dialogues, and I am your host, Shantae Charles. All right. Let's see what we can do here. Trying to see. Okay. All right. So here we go. Mentors. But we're going to call them guides. This is a read aloud podcast where we read and discuss. So if you're with us for the first time and you don't like reading or book discussions, this is probably not the podcast for you. If you love reading, you love to hear reading out loud and discussion, then keep watching. All right, here's what Tina Turner has to say. She's actually going to talk about that a little bit in her book, Rashad. Guides also help us see ourselves in ways we can't on our own. At any age, we can find a guide in life. If we don't have access to a guide in person, we can experience the wisdom of people through their written words, which is what we're doing here because Tina left us a lot of wisdom in her works. Um, Like I said, I got into reading about her and reading her works after I watched her documentary. And if you haven't seen her documentary, I think it may still be up on Netflix or Amazon. You can check those out. But it was a very, very powerful documentary. All right. Looking back, I've been fortunate to have a number of guides in my life. My first guide was my cousin Margaret, who taught me about the birds and the bees and how to take care of myself. During my teen years, I was fortunate to have some great teachers in high school. I also had the Hendersons, the family that I worked for. They compassionately taught me manners and how to conduct myself in society. They also showed me how a healthy relationship should work and provided me with an example of higher life conditions to inspire to and aspire to. Although my first marriage was famously a catastrophe, there were some positives in the beginning. I was only a teenager when I met Ike, and I didn't know anything about the music business. At first, when we were friends, he was my musical guide, teaching me about the entertainment industry, recording techniques, and performance styles. That guide and that guidance was short lived, however, and ended by the time we got married. Later, I was fortunate to meet my spiritual guide, Dyasaku Ikeda, the world's leading voice of Nichiren Buddhist philosophy, who gave me words of wisdom that changed my life. I'm thankful that I encountered my manager, Roger Davies, who became my greatest career guide and took me to a number one record and the worldwide success that I had always dreamed about. And then I met Erwin Bach, my mentor, my guide and true love, my unwavering life partner, my soulmate and husband. Being with Erwin has taught me to love without giving up who I am, as we grant each other the freedom and space to be individuals at the same time we are a couple. Now, she just said a whole word right there. Let me take a moment and look at some of the questions here. Um, Thank you, Tattooed. Rashad, you said, okay, you said you're asking me, would I be with someone like Ike? Um, I would say, based on my background, I knew someone like Ike. Um, I was never in an abusive relationship, but my mother was. And so, having seen the trauma and things that my mother went through, I made a personal decision never to involve myself with somebody who showed the inklingest of that kind of violence or jealousy. And I think that served me well. I am married now. I've been married this past July was 24 years that we celebrated. And so for me, having grown up in an environment where I saw physical abuse happen to my mother, I made my own personal decision that anytime I saw signs or what we call today red flags of someone with that kind of attitude and behavior, it was a no go, like non-starter. I also mentioned that to my husband, who was my fiance at the time, and we would have premarital counseling and stuff like that. And I told him, I said, look, if you ever, ever present in a way of violence to me, or like you're gonna lay hands on me, even if you don't do it, I'm out because I know where that can lead to, and I don't want to give the person that I'm going to be involved with for the rest of my life, I don't want to give them the idea or the impression that it would ever be okay, that I would ever say, oh, it was just that one time. No, because I grew up in that kind of environment, seeing that kind of abuse, and I saw what happened when you stayed. Does that make sense? So for me, it would be a absolutely not. Now, there are other women who would say, I can deal with, arguments that go off into emotional abuse as long as they don't lay hands on me. I'm like, no, we're not doing emotional abuse. We're not doing physical abuse. We're not doing spiritual abuse. We're not doing financial abuse. We're not doing any of that. And I am very thankful that I can say that I've been able to hold to my word and my beliefs. So that's my um, to answer your question. It would be absolutely not. Now, from what she just said, she said that she and Ike started out as friends. He was mentoring her at first. He was being a guide to her. He was being very helpful for her in the music industry. So she probably didn't look at him initially through the lens of, oh, this is a person that could potentially harm me. Okay. So let's continue. The other thing I want to point out that she said, being with her second husband taught her how to love without giving up who she was. Let me tell you, there are so many people who struggle with this. They struggle with getting into a relationship and maintaining their selves while they're in the relationship. Some people get into a relationship and they literally become whoever they're with. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, especially in the entertainment world. When you see somebody that has like been through several relationships, but every time you see them, they start to kind of mimic whatever that person they're with is doing, whether it's their style, how they carry themselves. They sort of like melt into becoming who that person's identity is. Now, there is a Latina star out right now, and I would probably say she's probably the best example of that right now, that has been married several times. But you look at her partners and everybody she's with, she takes on the persona of the person that she's with. Um, and so, this notion of loving without giving up who you are, I think she just gave everybody a nugget. If you can find yourself in a relationship with someone and you don't have to give up the essence of who you are, what made that person attracted to you in the first place when you got into the relationship, I think that's a what I would call a green flag. She says, from my youth, I was somehow blessed with an instinct to seek out people who know more than I do and to learn from them to help improve myself. That's the essence of any guidance. Maybe we all have the instinct to seek out guidance, but modern society has suppressed this feeling with its increasingly antisocial social media and emphasis on individualism that borders on isolationism. Hopefully, this trend will reverse and the value of seeking knowledge from those who know more than we do will be prized again. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're still at anti intellectualism, meaning people who are experts in their field are often shunned, they're often scorned, they're often mocked. um, because we have so many people saying, I've done my research, and their research is just a YouTube video, or they're saying, I've done my research, and their research is, you know, just skimming through a few articles. If you really want to do research, checking out your local library is good. Visiting and contacting your librarian in your local library to show you how to research a subject. That's part of the reason that librarians are there, by the way. They could really help you to dig into what it means to research something. But just watching a few videos is not necessarily research because you're just kind of cracking the surface on whatever topic that you're looking at. So I think what she's saying here is important, but I also know that we are not past the stage of anti intellectualism. I literally have people, especially on my social media pages, arguing with me about things that I've been studying for 20 something years, almost a quarter of a century. And in those moments, I realize this person doesn't know my background. This person um, may just be passionate about a subject, but not necessarily educated on the subject that they're passionate about. So I don't need to get online and I don't need to go back and forth in the comments and arguing and, calling people out of their name. It can get really, really messy online in some of these forums and some of these topics, right? But a lot of times when people are going back and forth with each other, many times they're not listening. They're not even saying, Okay, why are you saying that? What evidence do you have? What's your background? What do you know about this topic that maybe I don't know? Because your data is different from mine. So, what is your background? Where are you coming from with this information? Sometimes we don't even get there. It just devolves into people telling each other off and cursing each other out and blocking, and that's the end of that. She says here in 2014, my friend Herbie Hancock was invited to give the prestigious Norton Lectures at Harvard University, where he shared great insights on the topics of mentorship and changing poison into medicine. Herbie related lessons from his jazz guide, Miles Davis, who taught him that a great guide can provide a path to finding your own true answers and to always reaching up while reaching down, grow while helping others. Jazz music itself is an example of changing poison into medicine. All right. Tina Turner is about to school us. And exactly, you're actually kind of proving the point of what I'm saying here. You have LOL and then you're asking me why am I reading? Did you know that the average reading level of most Americans is 6th grade? 6th grade. So what does that mean for writers? That means writers have been literally told you need to make your writing simple so that a middle schooler can read it and understand it. I just want you to think about that. Think about all of the great writing that you know and have read. And then think about the current group of writers are being told you have to dumb down your writing so that a 6th grader can read it because that is the current average reading level of the American. That's not cool. That's not cool. All right. So, part of the reason why I read aloud is to help people with literacy in general that otherwise wouldn't pick up a book and read it. That's why I'm reading aloud. All right. Again, if reading aloud is not your thing, it's okay. You don't have to stay. Here's what she has to say about jazz music. African Americans created jazz, a great medicine for people's hearts, out of the poisonous experience of enslavement. Jazz developed from African culture, gospel music, and blues. And I would even actually put in there Negro spirituals, not just gospel music, to lift up the spirits of oppressed people. And now it brings joy to people the world over. Jazz holds a special place in my heart too. When I left Ike Turner in 1976, I was penniless. I wanted to work, but it was difficult to relaunch as a solo act. Whenever someone heard the name Tina, they'd say, "Where's Ike?" Now you have to remember, in 1976, women and their rights were still very limited in our country. Women were still being restricted from things like owning property, having things in their name, into their name without a male signing off on it, having a checkbook. Like these things that we kind of take for granted as women, when she was leaving him, women's rights were still very much restricted. So when people say, "Oh, well, she could have just got up and left," she did, but it's not the same context, right, as leaving an abusive spouse today. In 1976, there wasn't too much she could do outside of that marriage, legal wise. So she was actually taking a really bold stance. And a lot of women at that time who were in some of the same situations that she was in, she was providing them courage by looking at her situation and saying, you know what? If Tina can do this, if she can walk away from someone who is abusive, then I can too. Okay? So think about that. The Tina Turner. Whenever somebody would hear her name, they would say, "Where's Ike?" She says, I lacked the most basic resources I needed to start my new life. Through those hardest times, two jazz musicians and their families helped to keep me and my sons afloat. As I mentioned earlier, Wayne Shorter and his family chanted with us and took us in when we had nowhere to go. And Herbie Hancock and his wife Gigi also attended chanting meetings with me. They inspired me to never give up, to dream even bigger dreams. Years later, in 1982, Wayne, Herbie, and I had the honor of performing at a Buddhist peace festival in Washington, D.C. At that event, we vowed to be musical bodhisattvas, to create value in society by inspiring hope and peace through our artistic careers. The Joni Letters, for which we shared the Grammy Award for Album of the Year. I'm happy to say that I've won more Grammys than I can hold, but this was the only time I've received the Album of the Year award. And to share it with old friends was even sweeter. To me, it was the result of each of us changing poison into medicine repeatedly throughout the years because of our vow. What a joyful way to come full circle with my jazz friends. What do you want in life, Tina? I recall Wayne asking me one day. Returned home from our jazz tour the week after the 4th of July in 1976, found me scrubbing his kitchen floor. He and Anna tried to get me to stop doing things like this around the house during the 5 months that I was staying with them. But being of service to their family was another way I changed poison into medicine. I loved doing housework, and whether they realized it or not, my friends needed the help. I'm a great cleaner and organizer, and in those days when I stayed with friends while I was getting back on my feet, I enjoyed making their homes shine. Again, good morning to those of you who are coming in, or good evening. I felt useful, and my life condition rose as a result. Back in the kitchen, Wayne asked me again, if you could have anything your heart truly desires, what would you want? For yourself, for the people you love, for your community, for the world. I didn't know how to answer that question. I was on my own for the first time, and the future I wanted wasn't entirely in focus yet. Whatever your circumstances, it's a valuable exercise to ask yourself these questions. What would your version of ideal happiness look like? What is your heart's desire? When I was in my 20s and early 30s, I didn't know what I wanted and I hadn't really thought about where I was going. I just went. It may seem obvious, but if you don't know what you want, how can you possibly get it? If you don't know what your idea of fulfillment is, then it will be difficult to find. It's like setting out on a trip without a destination. If you don't have a clear destination, you'll likely end up wandering. Sometimes wandering can be fun for a short time, but eventually it becomes frustrating and aimless. And an aimless path isn't a suitable foundation for a joyful life. Since I didn't have to answer for Wayne at that time, he suggested I create a mission statement for my life to help set a clear direction. With a mission statement, I could see how the things I began to dream about would support my mission in life. Now, I want you to think about your own life today. Do you have a mission statement? First of all, do you know who you are? Could you sum up who you are in maybe 2 to 3 words? Think about that. Have you ever sat down and asked yourself, not who do people think I am, but who do I say that I am? For me, I know that I have 2 words that I use to describe myself: mental abolitionist. I'm here to help people to think better, whether that's to think better about yourself, whether that's to help you think better about your circumstances, about the world around you. I'm here to help people think better. And hopefully, in that thinking process, you get set free in whatever area of it that it is in your life. Because I know that, right? I try to let the things that I'm doing be centered around freedom. So whether it's creating music, which I do, whether it is writing books, which I do, whether it is creating artwork, which I do, whether it is lecturing or coaching or teaching students globally, which I do. All of those things are centered around mental abolition. At the core of what I'm doing, I want people to have that light bulb moment that comes on in their own mind or in their own life to say, ah, I get what she's saying. Or, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Or, oh, I now know what I can do better or different for my own life. So, what is the mission statement for your life? Is the mission statement for your life to make the world a better place? Is it to make yourself better? Is it to be of service to mankind? Is it to lift your family? What is your mission statement? What on earth are you here for? And if you've never thought about it, I encourage you to start thinking about that. Right now, I have a couple of students. I have a student in India that I'm working with, and I have a new student in England that I'm working with. The student in India is 14, the student in England is 6. And the conversation I was having with my husband last night was, I can see you teaching people, and it seems like you have the ability to teach people whether they're 3 or whether they're 103. And he got into, basically letting me know that everybody can't do that. Some people are just like, you know what? I want to work with older people. They can understand me. I don't have to give 59 instructions before they get it. I'm good working with older people. Some people are like, listen, old people, I don't want to deal with them. I'd much rather have the babies. I much work with the younger people. I feel like they're more pliable. They're more open to learning. They're more open to be corrected. For me, it doesn't matter if you're 3 or if you're 103. I love teaching. I love helping people to learn. I love helping people to grow. So, again, if you have not created a mission statement for your life or thought about what is my mission, can I sum up my mission in a few words? If someone to ask me, what on earth are you here for? What have you been put on earth to do? And you don't know the answer to that, please find it. And the way that you find it is going to be different for everybody. Some of us are exploring ourselves from the spiritual aspect. Some of us are exploring ourselves in the physical. Some people are trying out, different things to see what they like and what they're passionate about. But my encouragement to you is to start that process if you have not started it yet. All right. I'm going to stop there in her book for now. And I'm going to read you the thought for today from Dennis Kimbrough's book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. Today is September 20th, so let's see what he has here for September 20th. It says, I've got just the ticket. Roy Roberts, who was corporate executive of General Motors, said this: success doesn't mean the absence of failure, it means the attainment of objectives. My friend Ed won $2 million in the New York State lottery, but before he could collect the money, he had to do 3 things. First, Ed had to buy a ticket. He had to take action in order to win the prize. In other words, you can't be dealt a royal flush if you're not in the game. Second, Ed had to read the newspapers and watch the local lottery show on television to see if his numbers had been drawn. You must be vigilant for your good. You must look for the outward signs that your desired good is on its way. And finally, Ed had to show up at the lottery office and claim his prize. You must claim your good. To claim it is to state exactly what you want and ask for it with authority. You have the right to say with power and feeling, this is mine and it is my divine right. I will not do without it. There is no need to fight or struggle for your good. The moment you recognize that you deserve your good, the fight will be over. This is one mental law we must all learn. Today, I will spend time thinking of new and different ways to reach my goals. I will prioritize these plans and take action. Interesting that this would end up right on the same note that we just left off on. So that is time number two. Take action, prioritize your plans in order to reach your goal. Be encouraged today. Don't let other people tell you who you are. Please find out for yourself. Who do I say that I am? Ask yourself that. I know what other people have said about me. I know what other people describe me as, but who do I say that I am? And then go in the direction of that. Yesterday, I was thinking and meditating and praying, and the thought came to me, very famous quote that says, "Go in the direction of your dreams." And as that thought came to me, another thought came. Go in the direction of your dreams, not in the direction of other people's doubts. Let me say that again. Go in the direction of your dreams, not in the direction of other people's doubts. Oftentimes, we find our lives going in the direction of other people's doubts. What do I mean by that? You're no good. I don't know why you want to do that. You can't do that. Who do you think you are? Oh, you think you're better than us. I'm just not sure about that. All of that, guess what? Has nothing to do with you. Those are other people's doubts. And oftentimes, those doubts get projected onto you, and you start thinking that those doubts are your dreams. Uh-oh. Sometimes we start living out other people's doubts about us rather than the dreams that we started out with. So I want to encourage you again. What is it that has been placed in your heart to do? What is the dream of your heart? Think about that and think about whether or not you've been living towards and living in the direction of your dreams of your heart, or if you've been living in the directions of other people's doubts about what you're capable of doing. I know it's a hard one. If you start thinking about it long enough, you might figure out that you've been living in the direction of other people's doubts. So it's time to make a 180 and head in the other direction and head towards your dreams. I hope that I've said something today that was helpful. I encourage you to pick up a copy of Tina's work, Happiness Becomes You. I think you will be encouraged and inspired by what she is sharing. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues. I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. If you want to chop it up with us, we're going to conversation mode over on IG. Our IG is at Daring Dialogues, one word. You can meet us over there for the other half of this conversation. Take care, be well, and most importantly, be light.